to the Good Girl Confessional podcast. I'm your host, Sandy Lowres, and the Good Girl Confessional podcast is brought to us by WB40, Women Beyond 40, a platform for women to find adventures, join a community, and of course help other women to rise. You can check us out at wb40.com. Before we begin, I would like to pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land on which we are privileged to record this podcast. That for me is the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay respects to their leaders, past, present, and emerging. Today in the Confessional, I am very excited to bring you a very special guest. If you love an adventure, or you've thought about having one of your own, or you're thinking it's too late, well, think again. Our special guest today in the Confessional is Regina Petra Meyer, who takes adventuring to a whole new level. She has written an incredible memoir, which of course is called Change of Course, Sailing into Love and Adversity in the Caribbean Shores. She actually jumped on a yacht and was part of a crew, and she sailed from the Caribbean back to Australia. This is a true story. It's extraordinary. Along the way, she finds love, heartbreak, and a number of twists and turns happen. But if you've ever been thinking, wow, my life is a little bit boring and I need to get out and do something, this is the podcast for you. Please welcome to the Confessional, the extraordinarily brilliant Regina. Hello and welcome to the Good Girl Confessional. Regina, how are you?
I'm very good. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Sandy.
I'm excited to have you here and really excited to be chatting about your book, which of course is Change of Course. Wow, what a fascinating life you've had, Regina, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I have certainly stepped out of the conventional role a little bit.
I love that, a little bit, to say the least. So tell us, before we start talking about your amazing book, which is a memoir, tell us about your life. And when you say unconventional, tell us, how do you live your life and what's your purpose? I love this.
Well, I grew up in Switzerland. I don't know, some of you might have traveled there. So I come from Interlaken, which is set among the most beautiful mountains, the Alps. The scenery is just amazing, but it is very confined there. And what I found growing up, that it wasn't just the mountains that had a tendency to be a little bit confined. It also tended to extend to the minds of the people there. So it was very traditional. And I sort of remember thinking, even in my teens, that I just wanted to step out. I wanted to try different things and see different parts of the world, experience different cultures. And so, I started traveling when I was very young. I went to Switzerland really just to earn money so I could leave again. And I guess in a way, this has sort of become my purpose, to experience what there is to experience. And this took me eventually on the high seas and into the Caribbean.
Incredible, amazing. You've clearly got like an adventurous spirit, and maybe you were born with that. I'm not sure. Did you start to think about travel from a very, very young age?
Well, it's actually funny you ask that, because, I was wondering that myself, because neither of my parents are travelers. And I asked my mom one time when we were on a phone call, and she just started laughing. She said, no, when you were 3 years old, I caught you walking down the road with a little suitcase in hand. And I sort of thought at that point, okay, well, it's obviously just something that's innate in me, that drive to want to see and explore.
Oh, I love that. I love it. I just had this little visual of you with your little suitcase. I think that's so amazing. And did your parents read you a lot of books? Were you an avid reader when you were young? Did it actually, do you think, for me, I guess reading books, helped me to figure out that there's a whole world out there, not just my little life when I was a kid.
Oh, yes, for sure. Look, I was a library member as a child, and I actually started speed reading. So and I'm terrible at maths, but for some reason I was able to figure out, the amount of pages I had left and the time until the library closed. And I would speed read, run down to the library and grab the next books. And there was one author in particular, she, I don't think she's translated into English, unfortunately, but she was a teenage author and she was quite a prolific writer, and she'd written all about girls that went out into the world and interacted, with the Native Americans and, traveled to Africa. And I just remembered thinking, A, I want to travel like that, and B, I want to write a book.
What is this author's name?
Federica de Cesco.
Okay, in case anyone who wants to look her up. I love that, because the power of books for me, I grew up as a kid here in Australia, and I had what I considered to be quite a small life in some ways, but books were my escape. And so I love that. I think the power of books and the power of words is so important. And that's why the power of women's stories is so important, right? Because in her writing those books, she ignited a fire, obviously, in you, although maybe it was already there with your suitcase at 3. I love that. Maybe what she did was just encourage what was already there.
Yeah.
Right? But I think it's so important. And so you 100% lived your dreams and went off on many adventures around the world. And congratulations on this beautiful book. I'm going to hold it up here for those that are watching. This is Change of Course, Sailing into Love and Adversity on Caribbean Shores. Oh, wow. What an adventure this is. So, Regina, please tell us what inspired the book and tell us about this extraordinary time of your life.
Well, it all started when I was living in South Australia and I was feeling really stuck, and I think that's often a sort of the catalyst for us to actually really do something. It's the pain of, what I'm doing at the moment is just not really working. So I was in a relationship that was good, but it had just sort of reached a stale, format. And we were really good friends, but there wasn't really much else left there. So we decided that I should fulfill a lifelong dream. Now, my ex got really, really seasick, and I've always dreamt of sailing a big ocean. Again, I really don't know why, because I'm from a landlocked country. Neither of my parents were really big sailors. Anyway, so I crewed on a yacht, and I was a bit cheeky at the time because I'm still cheeky, by the way. I just needed to clear that up, right?
I love that. And I love that. And my listeners will be laughing their asses off right now because
you need it, right?
100%. And we love a cheeky person here in the confessional. So.
So, we agreed that I could fulfill my lifelong dream, and I could have gone and sailed, on a boat in Australia or, in the Pacific, which would have been a lot closer. But of course, I picked the boat that was the furthest away with the longest possible trip that I could fit into the time frame that we agreed. So I flew to the Caribbean on a one-way ticket, and the plan was to sail the boat back to Australia, which would have taken us through the Panama Canal and all across the Pacific. That's a major trip. Of course, in my life, plans never quite pan out the way I set them out. And I land in the Caribbean, and after a few weeks working on the boat, the trip falls apart. And I'm stranded now in the Caribbean. And also I'd met this wonderful, exotic man, the antidote to my partner at home. And of course, butterflies in the stomach, and, also feeling very guilty and ashamed of actually falling in love whilst I had a really honest and loyal partner at home. Eventually, the relationship in Australia ended, and that was my call. I actually put it all on the line, and I thought, you know what, this is just the result of where we were heading anyway. And I started a completely new life, in the Caribbean. Eventually I ended up living there, pursuing the romance, and yeah.
This is like mind blowing for so many people. So the plan was not originally though to stay in the Caribbean, was it? The plan was that you were actually going to be on this yacht and sail back to Australia. So tell us about when you first get to the Caribbean. I mean, I want to know what it felt like when you first saw the yacht and you thought, yeah, I'm really going to do this.
Look, it was so funny because, right, when you crew on a yacht, at the time, also I have to say, it was before smartphones, so I did have a chat with the skipper on Skype. And so I'd seen his face. He was a really old man, and the plan was to sail the boat back, eventually for them to sell the boat, because they were just at that stage in their life. I stepped onto the boat, and they were, they were a lovely couple, but they were also quite righteous in their opinions. And I remember stepping aboard and going like, oh, like I hadn't thought of this. I'm actually stepping into someone's home, and I'm going to have to live and breathe with them for the next, it would have been 3 months. And that was sort of when I realized that I had bargained a lot more than I initially knew. I'm sort of the person, I'm really spontaneous. So I will jump at a chance, I'll take it. And then once I'm there, I'll go like, oh, hang on a second, what did I do?
But that really speaks to your incredible adventurous spirit, that you just go, to hell with it. I'm stuck in Australia. I'm not happy. I'm in this relationship that's a little bit stale right now, and I'm just going to bloody go to the other side of the world and sail a yacht back to Australia that'll take 3 months with people you don't know. Like, to me, that is just brilliant. I love that about you.
It was really fun. Like I just remember actually when the plane was approaching Antigua, I had this feeling, it was, I guess it was intuition, and it just was like, this country is going to be good for me. And I felt like a sponge, like the whole time things happened, and it was exciting. And sometimes, it was also really scary. Like I was on my own, and when the trip fell apart, I really didn't know what to do. I didn't have a lot of savings, I didn't want to fall back onto my partner or my parents. Like, there was the expectation from me that if I truly step out and, I'm on my own, I'm going to have to make it on my own.
Wow. And so that's gutsy for a woman, especially, and you're a young woman and you're on the other side of it and you're in the Caribbean. Let's talk about that. So the plan was to sail the yacht back, but this all falls apart.
That's right.
Suddenly it's ditched. But before that, let's talk about partying in the Caribbean. Let's talk about that.
Right.
And what it led to, because, I love this cheeky. Let's talk about that.
Let's get into the saucy bit, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I was with my partner in Australia for 12 years at the time, right? And I guess we all know when you're in a relationship for a long time, things can get a little bit boring, and that doesn't apply to everyone, of course, but it applied to me. And so when I was in the Caribbean and the captain said, oh, we're going out to a sunset party on a beautiful cliff top, who wants to come? Of course I was in. What kind of question is that?
That sounds terrible.
Hello,
Yeah,
Sandy
right.
here from the Good Girl Confessional podcast. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is proudly brought to us by WB40, a platform for women 40, 50, 60 and beyond. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you'd like to see the rest of the video, please head over to WB40.com and subscribe to WB40 Extra. By subscribing to WB40 Extra, you're helping to support the hard-won wisdom of incredible women. So thank you. Please remember to like, share and follow.